There is a moment each night when the body finally decides it has done enough. It does not announce it. It does not ask permission. It simply begins to slow, as if some quiet switch has been flipped somewhere deep inside you. You turn down the lamp. The room softens into shadow. The day, with all its small demands and quiet efforts, loosens its grip. And you lower yourself onto the bed, not dramatically, not heavily, just carefully as you do now. You feel the mattress receive you. There is a particular sensation in that first contact. The weight of your back settling, your hips sinking slightly, your shoulders adjusting as the surface gives way beneath you. The mattress has learned your shape over the years. It knows the curve of your spine, the way you favor one side, the slight shift you make before you fully let go. Gravity does its work without hurry. Your body descends into rest the way a stone lowers into water, steady, inevitable, quiet. You stretch your legs out one at a time. You notice how they feel, heavier than they once did perhaps, or simply more honest. Your arms fall to your sides or rest across your stomach. Your hands, those hands that have carried groceries, held children, gripped steering wheels, signed documents, washed dishes, comforted loved ones, they are still now. The effort is over for today. One by one your muscles begin to release. Not all at once. It happens in layers. Your jaw unclenches first, maybe without you even realizing it had been tight. Then your shoulders soften, dropping just a fraction deeper into the bed. Your back follows. The small stabilizing muscles that held you upright all day finally receive permission to rest. Your thighs relax. Your calves. Even your feet, which have carried you through decades of living, quiet their subtle tension. You do not force this. You do not command it. The body knows how to rest. It has been practicing for a lifetime. Your breathing changes next. It lengthens. The inhale grows deeper, reaching lower into your lungs. The exhale lingers, slower than before. You are not trying to breathe differently, it simply happens. The rhythm of it becomes steady, almost tidal. A quiet reassurance that life continues without effort. For a few seconds there is nothing but this. The soft darkness behind your eyelids. The gentle rise and fall of your chest. The subtle warmth gathering beneath the blankets. If someone were to look at you now, they would think you were already asleep. Your body certainly believes it is ready. It has entered rest mode. The signals are there: slowed breath, softened muscles, reduced movement. It has done what it knows to do at the end of a long day. And yet, the mind has not followed. It hovers just slightly above the surface of sleep, alert in a way that feels almost curious. Not anxious, not distressed, simply awake, as if it is waiting for something. Or perhaps as if this is the only quiet moment it has been given all day to speak. You lie there, suspended between two worlds, the body descending, the mind lingering. This is the space where memory begins. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, let yourself return to this moment. You are still lying here. The house has grown quieter. The temperature in the room has shifted slightly cooler. Your body is no longer asking for anything. No adjustment. No movement. It has accepted the bed as its resting place for the night. There is a kind of dignity in this. The body has carried you through an entire lifetime of motion. Walking, lifting, working, loving, enduring, and now it simply asks to lie down. To be horizontal. To be still. That is all. It does not demand perfection. It does not demand comfort beyond what is possible. It only asks for permission to stop. And you give it that permission. Your spine eases. Your neck settles deeper into the pillow. The small micro-movements that keep you balanced throughout the day are gone. You are no longer bracing against gravity. You are cooperating with it. Rest is not dramatic. It is not an event. It is a surrender. Yet while your body has surrendered, your mind stands at the doorway. You notice this without judgment. This is not failure. This is not insomnia in its sharp, clinical sense. This is simply the natural rhythm of someone who has lived long enough to carry stories. When the body becomes still, the mind finally has space to move. It is almost as if the mind waits for this exact moment, for the muscles to quiet, for the breath to slow, for the world to dim, before it begins its own subtle work. There is no urgency. No racing. Just awareness. You are aware of the weight of the blanket across your legs. Aware of the faint hum somewhere in the house. Aware of your own heartbeat, steady and loyal. The body is doing what it has always done, keeping you alive without applause. And the mind? The mind is awake enough to remember that you have lived. For now it does not present images. Not yet. It only holds a quiet readiness, like pages about to be turned. The body is prepared for sleep. The systems are slowing. The breath is even. The muscles are loose. But the mind has one more thing to say before it rests. And you allow it. Because this is the agreement you have come to over the years. The body may stop first. The mind may follow later. There is no rush. No punishment. No struggle. Just a gentle unfolding of night. You lie there, neither asleep nor fully awake, floating in that narrow space where the body is heavy and the mind is light. The body rests. The mind remembers. And the night has only just begun. After the body has softened into the mattress and your breathing has found its slower rhythm, something else begins to take shape around you. It is not sleep. Not yet. It is the quiet. The real quiet. The kind that does not arrive immediately when the lights go out, but settles gradually, layer by layer, as if the world itself is dimming in stages. You can feel it spreading through the house, moving from room to room, filling corners, lowering ceilings, smoothing the sharp edges of the day. The house begins to settle in its own way. It has been standing all day, holding the weight of your movements, absorbing the small vibrations of footsteps and doors and chairs being pulled back from tables. Now, with everything still, it exhales. There is the faintest creak from somewhere down the hall, wood adjusting to cooler air. A soft tick in the walls where pipes contract as water cools inside them. These are not loud sounds. They are subtle, almost shy, but in the absence of conversation and television and traffic, they become noticeable. Not threatening. Familiar. You know these sounds. You have known them for years. The floorboard near the bathroom that always gives a slight sigh. The closet door that shifts just enough to make a small click. The clock in the living room that keeps its steady rhythm, unconcerned with whether you are awake to hear it. Tick, tick, tick. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply marks time the way it always has. During the day, these sounds are swallowed by activity. They exist, but you do not register them. Now, in the middle of the night, they feel amplified not because they are louder, but because everything else has gone quiet. The refrigerator hums in the distance, a low constant vibration that you only notice when nothing competes with it. The wind brushes lightly against the windows, not forceful, just enough to remind you that outside still exists beyond these walls. And then, slowly, even those sounds begin to thin. The occasional car that passes earlier in the evening has stopped. The neighborhood dogs who bark at shadows and strangers have surrendered to sleep. No doors slam. No voices drift through open windows. The world outside has withdrawn into itself. The streetlights cast their steady glow, but they illuminate nothing moving. The air feels suspended, as if even the night is holding its breath. This is the hour when silence stops being an absence and becomes a presence. It presses gently against the windows. It rests along the ceiling. It settles beside you in the bed. It is not empty. It is full of space. Full of room for something to rise. The quiet does not demand your attention, but it invites it. It makes room for thought in a way daylight never does. During the day there is always something to respond to, something to solve, something to complete. But now there is nothing asking anything of you. The house is not speaking. The world is not calling. No one needs you in this moment. And in that absence of demand, the mind receives permission. You begin to notice how still everything truly is. The air feels thicker, almost textured. The darkness has depth. Your senses sharpen slightly, not out of fear but out of awareness. You hear your own breathing more clearly. You feel the small shifts in the mattress when you move even slightly. The house, which felt ordinary hours ago, now feels almost sacred in its stillness. Silence is rarely this complete. It does not happen in the afternoon. It does not happen at dinner time. It does not happen when the news is playing or dishes are being washed. It only happens now, in this narrow window when the world has stepped aside. And something about that silence signals to the mind that it is safe to begin. Safe to remember. There is no audience here. No interruptions. No need to organize your thoughts into something coherent or presentable. In the daytime, thinking often has a purpose. It is directed. It is problem-solving. It is practical. But in this quiet, thought has no agenda. It drifts. It wanders. It unfolds without structure. The ticking clock continues, steady and indifferent, but even that sound begins to blend into the background. You stop listening for it. Instead, you listen to what rises inside you. The silence does not push memories forward, but it clears the path for them. Without noise, without distraction, the mind has space to reach deeper. You realize that silence is not something to fill. It is something to enter. There is no pressure here. No urgency. The quiet does not insist that you think about anything specific. It simply offers the opportunity, like a blank page laid out before you, waiting for whatever words choose to appear. And because nothing else is competing for your attention, you allow it. The walls of the house, which held laughter and arguments and conversations earlier in life, now hold stillness. But that stillness is not empty. It contains echoes. Not literal sounds but impressions. The house has witnessed everything. It has absorbed the rhythms of your living. And in the quiet, those impressions feel closer, easier to access. You do not chase them. You simply notice the shift. The body is at rest. The world is silent. And the mind begins to stir. Silence, you realize, is not loneliness. It is space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to remember without being rushed forward by the next task. It is permission without words. The night has created a container. Within it, you are free to wander. There is a calmness to this recognition. No alarm. No restlessness. Just the understanding that this is what happens when everything else falls away. The quiet arrives. The house settles. The outside world recedes. And in that clearing, memory begins to rise, gently, as if it has been waiting all along for exactly this kind of silence. When the quiet has fully settled and the mind begins its slow unfolding, your awareness returns almost inevitably to the body. It is impossible to ignore for long. In the darkness, without distraction, you feel it clearly, the weight of it against the mattress, the outline of your shoulders pressing into the sheets, the steady rise and fall of your chest. This body has come to rest for the night, but it does not disappear. It makes itself known in subtle, honest ways. There is the ache in your lower back, not sharp enough to alarm you but constant enough to be familiar. It has been there for years now, sometimes quieter, sometimes louder, but rarely gone. There is the stiffness in your knees when you shift under the covers, the slight protest in your hips when you roll from one side to the other. Your shoulders carry a heaviness that did not exist decades ago. Even your hands, resting loosely on the blanket, feel different. Thinner skin, joints a little swollen, veins more visible than they once were. None of this is dramatic. None of it is catastrophic. It is simply the language of time written into muscle and bone. You adjust your position slowly, carefully, with the kind of patience you did not have when you were younger. There was a time when you could drop into bed without thinking, twist into any shape, and wake without consequence. Now, sleep requires negotiation. A pillow tucked here. A blanket shifted there. A slow, deliberate roll to ease pressure off one side of your body and onto the other. It is not frustration you feel, but awareness. Your body is no longer invisible to you. It asks to be considered. There was a period in life when you saw discomfort as an inconvenience, something to push through. You worked long hours, lifted heavy things, stayed up too late, ignored fatigue, ignored pain. The body complied then. It absorbed the strain without complaint. It repaired itself quickly, quietly, efficiently. You assumed that was how it would always be. But now you understand that what felt like invincibility was simply youth. The resilience was real, but it was temporary. And yet, lying here in the dark, you do not feel anger toward this aging form. You feel something closer to respect. This body has carried you through every season of your life. It has walked thousands of miles without asking where you were going. It has stood in lines, climbed stairs, bent to tie shoes, reached to hold hands. It has held children against its chest. It has worked through exhaustion. It has endured illnesses and healed from injuries. It has survived grief and excitement and fear, translating every emotion into physical sensation and somehow continuing forward. The aches you feel now are not signs of failure. They are evidence of mileage. Evidence that this body has been used, lived in, depended upon. The stiffness in your joints speaks of years spent moving through the world. The tenderness in your back remembers the weight of responsibility, literal and emotional, that you carried. Even the slower recovery, the longer rest required now, is not weakness. It is the natural rhythm of something that has been in service for a long time. You breathe in slowly and feel the air expand your lungs. That, too, is something this body has done for you without pause, without rest, for decades. Breath after breath, through every argument, every celebration, every loss, every ordinary afternoon. Your heart continues its steady work inside your chest, beating without needing your instruction. Your body, even in its aging, remains loyal. It would be easy to see only the limitations. The things you cannot do now that once came easily. The sports abandoned. The long walks shortened. The dancing reduced to memory. But tonight, in this stillness, you allow yourself a different perspective. This body is not your enemy. It is your oldest companion. It has been with you from the beginning and it has never left. There were times you neglected it. Times you fed it poorly, rested it too little, pushed it beyond reason. And still it adapted. It endured. It kept showing up for you. Even now, when it asks for gentleness, for slower movement, for more careful attention, it is not betraying you. It is communicating honestly. The pain you feel is familiar, almost predictable. It has patterns. You know which movements will aggravate it and which will soothe it. There is something intimate about that knowledge. You and your body have learned each other over time. You know its limits better now. You know when to push and when to pause. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. Gratitude arises quietly without drama. Not gratitude for discomfort, but gratitude for endurance. For all the years this body allowed you to wake up and participate in life. For the hands that cooked meals, wiped tears, signed documents, repaired broken things. For the legs that carried you into new cities, new jobs, new chapters. For the arms that embraced people you loved. For the voice that spoke your thoughts into existence. You rest your awareness on the simple fact that this body is still here. It may move more slowly. It may ache more often. It may require more patience. But it remains your vessel, your home. It has earned compassion, not criticism. There is a tenderness in that realization. You soften your jaw. You release your shoulders a little more deeply into the mattress. You allow the aches to be present without fighting them. They are part of the story. Part of the proof that you have lived. This body has carried a lifetime. It deserves acknowledgement. It deserves kindness. And as you lie here in the dark, feeling its weight and its wear, you choose to meet it not with frustration, but with respect. Just as the body begins to settle, just as the muscles soften and the breath finds its slow, steady rhythm, something else stirs. The mind, instead of following the body into rest, becomes alert in a quiet, almost curious way. It does not feel frantic. It does not feel panicked. It simply feels awake. And this can be confusing. The body is ready. The lights are off. The room is still. But the mind has other plans. This is not a failure. It is not a flaw. It is not something broken that needs to be fixed. The mind has always had a habit of review. During the day, it stays busy with tasks and conversations and responsibilities. It focuses outward. It reacts, solves. It moves from one thing to the next without much space in between. But at night, when all of that falls away, the mind finally has room. And when it has room, it looks back. Not urgently. Not aggressively. Just naturally. It revisits moments from earlier in the day. A conversation that lingered. A look someone gave you. A task left unfinished. Then it drifts further back beyond the present day into older territory. Images surface without invitation. Words replay themselves softly. The mind sorts, examines, reorders. There is no danger in this. Even if the thoughts feel heavy, they are not threats. They are simply movement. The brain is doing what it has always done, processing, integrating, filing away experience. When there is no noise from the outside world, the inside world becomes easier to hear. It can feel like the mind is refusing to sleep, but often it is simply completing its work. For decades, it has learned to use quiet moments for reflection. And at this stage of life, there is much to reflect on. Years of experience do not disappear when the lights go out. They wait patiently for space. Sometimes the thoughts are ordinary. Small reminders. A memory of something said earlier. Sometimes they are deeper. Old emotions revisiting. Questions without answers. But none of it means something is wrong. The mind is not betraying you. It is tending to what was left unattended during the day. You may notice that the thoughts come in waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fade. If you do not fight them, they often soften on their own. The more you try to force the mind into silence, the louder it can become. But if you allow it to speak quietly without urgency, it usually settles. There is no emergency here. You are safe. The house is quiet. The night is steady. Your body is resting. The mind is simply stretching before it lies down. It has habits formed over a lifetime. It reviews because that is how it makes sense of living. You do not need to solve anything at this hour. You do not need to respond to every thought. You can watch them move across your awareness like clouds passing through a dark sky. They appear. They shift. They dissolve. The mind refusing to sleep is not an enemy. It is a sign that you have lived. That you have accumulated enough experience to revisit. That your inner world is rich enough to occupy itself in silence. In time it too will grow tired. In time it will slow. For now it is simply awake. And that is okay. The first thoughts do not arrive with logic. They do not line up neatly or introduce themselves with explanation. They simply appear. A flicker of something. An image without context. A feeling without a clear origin. You are lying there, eyes closed or half open in the dark, and suddenly you are somewhere else entirely. It might begin with something small. The color of a curtain from a house you haven't seen in decades. The sound of a screen door slamming shut. The faint smell of rain on warm pavement. There is no storyline attached to it. Just a fragment. A piece. Your mind offers it gently as if testing the water. Then another comes. A pair of shoes by a doorway. The pattern on a kitchen tablecloth. The sensation of sitting in the back seat of a car while adults talked in the front. You cannot immediately place the year. You do not know why this moment out of thousands has chosen to surface. But it has. And you let it stay for a second. These thoughts do not follow order. They do not move chronologically from childhood to youth to adulthood. They skip. They wander. They behave like light moving across water, touching one memory then another, then disappearing entirely before you can grasp it. You might see a face. Not clearly at first. Just the outline. The way their hair fell across their forehead. The way they smiled when they were trying not to laugh. You feel something before you fully recognize who it is. A warmth. Or a sting. And then, slowly, the name returns. Sometimes it is not visual at all. It is physical. The feeling of cool grass under bare feet. The weight of a book in your lap. The texture of someone's hand in yours. These sensory fragments are stronger than facts. They bypass explanation. They land directly in the body. There is no effort required. You are not searching for these memories. You are not trying to remember. They are arriving on their own, rising from some quiet place inside you where everything has been stored carefully, patiently for years. You notice how strange it is that your mind kept all of this. Moments you thought were forgotten. Days you believed had faded completely. And yet here they are, intact in feeling if not in detail. Not full scenes but impressions. Not full stories but echoes. A laugh in a hallway. The hum of a refrigerator in a childhood kitchen. The way sunlight filtered through curtains in the late afternoon. None of it is dramatic. None of it would seem important if you tried to explain it to someone else. But in this hour, in this stillness, it feels deeply significant. The mind is not trying to teach you anything yet. It is not drawing conclusions. It is simply opening drawers and letting you peek inside. It is allowing memory to flow without judgment, without agenda. You do not rush it. You do not demand clarity. You let the images come and go the way they want to. Some linger. Some vanish almost immediately. The flow is gentle, almost dreamlike, though you are still awake. This is how remembering begins. Not with big revelations, not with heavy truths, but with small, quiet fragments. With random flashes that make no immediate sense. With sensations that carry more emotion than explanation. The mind is warming up. It is finding its rhythm. And you, lying there in the dark, simply follow along, allowing the past to surface one soft image at a time. The body lying in this bed is older now. It carries stiffness in the joints, weight in the limbs, a certain carefulness in every movement. It knows gravity differently than it once did. It knows limits. It knows recovery takes longer. It knows that rest is no longer optional but necessary. And yet, the mind does not seem to care about any of that. Without asking permission from the aching knees or the tired back, it drifts backward. Not to last year. Not even to middle age. It drifts further. To a place the body itself no longer resembles. You are in a childhood home again. Not as a visitor. Not as an adult looking back. But as the child who once lived there. The hallway feels longer. The ceiling's higher. The room's larger than life. The furniture seems oversized because you were small then, and the world reflected that smallness back to you. You remember the way the front door sounded when it closed. The exact rhythm of footsteps coming down the hallway. The smell of dinner cooking before you even stepped into the kitchen. These memories do not require effort. They are alive in a way your muscles are not. Your body, lying here in the dark, cannot run across that old backyard anymore. It cannot climb the fence or leap off the porch steps without hesitation. But in memory it does. In memory you move quickly, effortlessly, without fear of falling. There was a simplicity to that time, a structure to it. Days were shaped by routines you did not question. Morning light through the same window, the same cereal bowl, the same walk to school. The world felt contained, predictable, safe even when it was not perfect. You remember your parents as they once were, younger than you are now. That realization alone is startling. You see them not as the older figures from your later memories, but as strong, capable adults moving through their own lives with an energy you barely noticed at the time. You remember your mother's hands before they wrinkled, your father's voice before it softened with age. You remember the way they carried groceries, fixed things, laughed loudly at something small. In these memories they are vivid and alive, not reduced by time. Your body today carries the marks of decades. But the child in these memories has smooth skin, boundless energy, a sense of invincibility. The contrast is gentle but undeniable. The body has aged. The memory has not. There is something almost miraculous about that. The knees that ache now once bent easily on the living room floor while building forts from blankets. The hands that tremble slightly today once gripped bicycle handlebars tightly, racing down sidewalks without thinking about risk. The eyes that need glasses now once saw everything clearly, sharply, without assistance. And yet, in this quiet hour, none of those physical limitations matter. The mind does not require strong legs or steady hands to revisit childhood. It travels freely, untethered from the body's condition. You feel a softness toward that younger version of yourself. A tenderness. You remember the fears that felt enormous then. Monsters in the dark, tests at school, the possibility of disappointing someone. Those fears seem small now, but they were real to that child. They mattered. You want to reach back and reassure them. To say that they will survive what feels overwhelming. That life will be complicated but meaningful. That love will find them, and lost too, and they will endure both. The body resting here may feel fragile at times. But the memories it carries are young, bright, undamaged by age. They remain untouched by stiffness or fatigue. In the quiet of the night, you realize something beautiful. Time changes the body, but it does not erase who you have been. That child still exists inside you. Not physically but fully. Preserved in memory, alive in feeling. The body may grow old, but memory somehow stays young. There was a time when your body felt like it belonged entirely to you, obedient and tireless, responding without hesitation to whatever you asked of it. You did not negotiate with it. You did not plan around its limitations. You simply moved and it followed. In youth, energy was not something you measured. It was simply there. You could wake early, stay up late, and fill the hours in between without noticing depletion. Days stretched long and full, and your body seemed built for motion rather than rest. You remember walking for miles without thinking about it, climbing stairs two at a time, lifting heavy boxes because they needed lifting, running, not for exercise, not for discipline, but because you felt like it, because movement itself was a pleasure. Sleep back then was effortless. You would lie down and disappear. No negotiation, no repositioning, no awareness of the mattress or the pillow. Just a quick descent into deep, uninterrupted rest. Morning came and you rose easily as if the night had fully restored you. You did not study your breathing. You did not monitor your heart. You did not notice the quiet workings of your body. It functioned smoothly in the background, reliable and silent. Limits were invisible then. Or perhaps you simply didn't believe in them. You assumed there would always be more time, more strength, more chances. The future felt wide and open, not narrowing. The body felt permanent, not temporary. You did not imagine that one day you would move more carefully or choose chairs based on back support, or measure activities by how much recovery they would require afterward. There was a certain innocence in that lack of awareness. Not foolishness, just youth. When your knees never complained, you did not think to thank them. When sleep came easily, you did not see it as a gift. When your back held firm, you did not consider that one day it might not. You remember staying up all night for reasons that felt important then, conversations that ran long, books you couldn't put down, work that demanded attention, or simply the thrill of not going to bed because you didn't have to. And still, the next day you functioned. You moved forward. Now, lying here in the dark, you can feel the contrast gently but clearly. The body resting beneath these blankets is not the same one that raced through those years. It carries history now. It carries mileage. And yet, there is no bitterness in this remembering. Only recognition. That younger body did its work. It carried you through education, through building a career, through raising children, through love and conflict and travel and effort. It was built for expansion. This body is built for endurance. Youthful energy was bright and outward-facing. It rushed toward experience. It chased possibility. It rarely paused long enough to reflect. Age brings something quieter, slower. Not weaker, just different. There is less urgency now. Less need to prove. The energy you have is directed more carefully, more intentionally. You may not run as far. You may not stay awake as long. But you notice more. You reflect more. You understand more. The contrast between then and now is not a judgment. It is simply time doing what time does. You were once endless motion. Now you are measured presence. The body has changed. That is true. But it has not failed you. It has simply evolved into its current form, carrying all those earlier years within it. And as you lie here remembering, you do not wish to return. You do not long to exchange this body for that one. You simply acknowledge both. The one that ran without thinking, and the one that rests thinking deeply. There was a stretch of years when life stopped feeling open and started feeling urgent. Youth had energy, yes, but early adulthood had weight. Real weight. Bills that had to be paid. Deadlines that could not be missed. Decisions that carried consequences you could not yet fully understand. You remember that shift? The moment when the future stopped being abstract and became something you had to actively build. Work entered your life not as an idea but as necessity. Mornings were no longer optional. You woke not because you were rested but because you had to. There were places to be, expectations to meet, people depending on you. The body moved automatically, showering, dressing, commuting, while the mind ran ahead, planning, calculating, preparing. There was pressure in those years. Not dramatic, not always visible, but constant. The quiet pressure of wanting to succeed. Of wanting to prove yourself capable. Of wanting to avoid failure at any cost. You did not always know what you were doing, but you moved forward anyway. Many of the biggest decisions of your life were made then. Jobs accepted or declined. Cities moved to. Relationships begun. Risks taken, or avoided. You rarely had complete certainty. There was no manual. No guarantee. You chose based on instinct, advice, fear, hope. Sometimes you chose well. Sometimes you did not. But you chose. The body during those years was often tired but compliant. You pushed it through long days and even longer nights. You drank coffee when energy dipped. You sacrificed sleep when necessary. You told yourself it was temporary, that once you arrived, things would ease. But arrival never quite came in the way you imagined. Instead, responsibility expanded. Work led to more work. Relationships deepened and required effort. Perhaps children arrived, bringing joy but also sleepless nights and financial strain. Perhaps aging parents began to need help. Life layered itself on top of itself and you carried it all. There wasn't much time for reflection then. Survival mode does not allow for stillness. You were busy building something: stability, identity, security. The mind coped by focusing on the next step, the next task, the next goal. Emotionally, you learned endurance. You learned how to swallow frustration and keep going. How to recover quickly from disappointment because there wasn't time to fall apart. How to function even when you were uncertain. Looking back now, you can see how much strength those years required. At the time, it didn't feel like strength. It felt like necessity. You did what had to be done. There were moments of doubt. Quiet ones, usually late at night. Questions about whether you were on the right path. Whether the choices you made would hold. Whether the life you were constructing would support you in the long run. But morning always came. And with it, motion. The body kept moving. The mind kept adjusting. You adapted without realizing that adaptation itself was a skill you were developing. Early adulthood was not glamorous. It was not as nostalgic as childhood, nor as free as youth. It was structured by responsibility, shaped by pressure, defined by forward momentum. And yet it was formative. It built the foundation for everything that followed. The resilience you carry now was forged there. The ability to endure uncertainty. The ability to continue despite fear. The understanding that clarity rarely comes before action, it comes after. You did not have perfect knowledge then. No one does. You had limited information, limited experience, and a body willing to work. And that was enough. Now, lying here in stillness, you can look back at that version of yourself with respect. Not criticism. Not regret. Respect. You were learning how to carry life. And you carried it the only way anyone can, step by uncertain step. Some memories arrive with detail. Others arrive with feeling. Love, more than anything, returns as feeling first. A warmth in the chest. A softness behind the eyes. A quiet recognition that something once mattered deeply and still does. You remember the first time romantic love settled into your life. Not the dramatic version from movies, but the real one. The nervousness. The heightened awareness. The way a single glance or touch could change your entire day. There was an electricity to it then. A sense of being chosen. Of being seen. You remember conversations that stretched late into the night, when sleep felt unimportant compared to the urgency of knowing and being known. The small discoveries about each other, favorite songs, childhood stories, private fears. Love felt expansive, like the world had widened just because another person was standing beside you. That early love was intense, yes, but also fragile. It carried hope in both hands. It believed in permanence without understanding what permanence required. And then there was the love that stayed. The kind that didn't burn brightly but steadily. The kind that did not announce itself with drama but proved itself through repetition. Through showing up. Through ordinary days shared side by side. Long companionship changes the shape of love. It becomes less about excitement and more about presence. It becomes the rhythm of shared routines. The quiet cup of coffee in the morning. The way you knew how they liked their food prepared without asking. The way they sensed your mood before you spoke. You remember lying in bed beside someone for years, listening to their breathing, aware of the simple comfort of another body in the dark. There was security in that. A grounding. Even when life outside the bedroom felt uncertain, that steady presence was an anchor. Love in its mature form is rarely loud. It does not demand attention. It lives in the unnoticed gestures. The hand placed gently on your back. The familiar sound of footsteps in the hallway. The way silence between you never felt awkward. There were conflicts, of course. Disagreements. Misunderstandings. No shared life escapes those. But beneath them was something stronger. A commitment to return. to repair, to remain. And then there is the love that memory now holds. Whether that person still lies beside you or whether they exist only in remembrance, the imprint remains. You can still recall the texture of their voice, the particular way they laughed, the way they filled a room simply by being in it. Love does not disappear when circumstances change. It transforms. It becomes quieter, more internal. It shifts from shared experience to internal presence. Sometimes you find yourself reaching across the bed in the dark, out of habit more than intention. Sometimes you hear a phrase and instantly think of how they would have responded. Sometimes a scent or song carries you back without warning. The mind stores love carefully. Not just the grand moments, the weddings, the anniversaries, but the small ones, the everyday exchanges that built a life together. Looking back now, you do not need the intensity of early love. You value the endurance of the later kind. The kind that lasted through illness, through disappointment, through aging bodies and changing circumstances. Love, you realize, is not defined by how loudly it announces itself. It is defined by how long it stays. And even now, in this quiet room, in this aging body, love remains present. Not demanding, not dramatic, just there. Stored gently in memory. Marriage, when you look back on it honestly, was never what you imagined in youth. It wasn't a constant feeling. It wasn't endless romance or uninterrupted harmony. It was something quieter and more demanding than that. It was two lives gradually weaving together, thread by thread, day after ordinary day. In the beginning there was excitement, plans, the belief that love alone would smooth out any difficulty. You stood beside each other thinking the hard parts would be small, manageable, temporary. What you didn't understand then was that marriage is not built in the bright moments. It is built in the quiet endurance of the difficult ones. Compromise became a language you both had to learn. Not the dramatic kind where someone sacrifices everything, but the subtle daily adjustments. Whose career takes priority this year? Who gives in during an argument? Who cooks tonight? Who apologizes first? These small negotiations shaped your shared life more than any grand romantic gesture ever could. You learned each other's habits. The quirks that once seemed charming sometimes became irritating. The things that felt minor at first slowly grew into patterns. There were arguments that repeated themselves over the years, almost predictable in their rhythm. And yet, even in conflict, something held. Repair became more important than perfection. There were moments when harsh words were spoken, when pride stood in the way, when silence stretched too long. But there were also moments of return. A hand reaching across the table. A softening of tone. A quiet, "I'm sorry," spoken without drama. Marriage was not about avoiding hurt. It was about learning how to come back from it. Over time, passion changed shape. It didn't vanish, but it matured. It moved from intensity to steadiness. From fireworks to embers. The presence of your partner became more important than the thrill of being in love. Just knowing they were there, moving through the house, sitting beside you in the evening, breathing softly in the dark, was enough. Shared lives are built from repetition. Shared meals. Shared bills. Shared grief. Shared laughter that no one else would understand. You developed a shorthand language, a way of communicating without speaking much at all. A look across the room could carry a full conversation. There were seasons when you felt distant. When responsibilities overshadowed connection. When exhaustion replaced tenderness. But even then there was a quiet commitment beneath it all. A decision, sometimes renewed daily, to stay. Marriage taught you humility. It forced you to see your own flaws reflected back through someone else's eyes. It demanded patience you didn't know you possessed. It revealed both your strength and your immaturity. And yet, it also offered something irreplaceable: witness. Someone who saw you through different versions of yourself. Someone who remembered who you were before you forgot. Someone who shared the inside story of your life. Looking back now, you understand that partnership is less about constant closeness and more about consistent return. It is choosing again and again to remain. To build something steady rather than spectacular. Presence over passion. Commitment over convenience. And whether that shared life continues beside you now or lives only in memory, the truth remains. You built something real. Not perfect. Not effortless. But real. And that kind of love, honest and enduring, leaves a mark that does not fade. Parenting does not end when the house grows quiet. It does not end when the children move out, or when the phone calls become less frequent, or when birthdays are celebrated in different homes. Parenting continues in the mind, in memory, in the constant undercurrent of concern that never fully disappears. You remember the beginning clearly. The first time you held them, how impossibly small they felt in your arms. The weight of responsibility settled in instantly, heavy and sacred. It was not just love you felt. It was fear. A deep, steady fear of failing them. Of not knowing enough. Of not being enough. No one truly prepares you for that. The realization that another human being's safety, happiness, and future rest partly in your hands. You did your best. That is what you tell yourself now. But in the moment it never felt like enough. Every decision carried doubt. Every mistake felt enormous. When they cried, you questioned yourself. When they struggled, you blamed yourself. When they succeeded, you felt relief as much as pride. The fear of failing them never fully left. It only changed shape. When they were small, you feared scraped knees and fevers in the night. When they grew older, you feared the world itself. The friends who might hurt them, the choices that might derail them, the heartbreaks you could not prevent. You wanted to protect them from everything sharp and unforgiving. But you learned, slowly, painfully, that you could not. And that was the hardest lesson of all. You remember standing in doorways watching them sleep, memorizing the rise and fall of their breathing. You remember school mornings, tying shoes, packing lunches, rushing out the door. You remember the arguments over homework, the slammed doors, the tears on both sides. You remember the moments when patience ran thin, when exhaustion spoke louder than kindness. Those moments linger in memory more sharply than you wish they did. Regret attaches itself easily to parenting. The times you were too harsh. The times you didn't listen closely enough. The days you were distracted by work or worry. You replay them in the dark sometimes, wondering if those moments left scars you cannot see. But then other memories surface. The laughter at the dinner table. The bedtime stories. The way they ran toward you when they were hurt. The way their small hand fit perfectly inside yours. The pride in their eyes when they accomplished something on their own. Those memories steady you. Pride and doubt exist side by side. You are proud of who they've become, their strength, their kindness, their independence. And yet you still question yourself. Did I do enough? Did I guide them well? Did I miss something important? That questioning never truly fades. Letting go happened gradually. It wasn't one single moment. It was small releases over time. The first day of school. The first sleepover. The first time they drove away alone. The first time they made a decision without asking you. Each step forward was a step away from you, and that is how it was meant to be. You raised them to leave. That was always the goal. And yet when they did, the space they left behind felt larger than you expected. Parenting becomes quieter with time, but it never stops. It lives in late-night thoughts. In sudden worries when the phone rings unexpectedly. In the way your heart still tightens when you think about them. In the way you still want to protect them even though they no longer need protecting. The mind never stops remembering the years you carried them. First in your arms, then in your thoughts. And perhaps that is what parenting truly is. A lifetime of loving someone who slowly learns to live without you, while you continue loving them just the same. The rooms are still now. Not temporarily quiet, not paused between moments of activity, but truly still. The kind of stillness that comes when a chapter has closed and will not reopen the same way again. The beds are made neatly. The closets hold only a few forgotten items. The walls, once decorated with posters and drawings and evidence of growing up, are plain or carefully repurposed. The house is orderly in a way it never used to be. There was a time when silence felt impossible here. Doors opening and closing. Music drifting down the hallway. Laughter erupting from nowhere. Arguments that seemed so urgent at the time. The constant sound of life unfolding in real time. Back then you sometimes wished for quiet. Just a moment to think. Just a moment to sit without someone calling your name. Now the quiet stretches endlessly. Your body rests easily in this calmer space. There are fewer interruptions, fewer demands. You can move through the house without stepping over shoes or toys. You can sit at the kitchen table without negotiating schedules or solving problems. The physical work of parenting has ended. The lifting, the rushing, the constant alertness, it has all softened. But the mind does not follow the body into stillness. It wanders down hallways that no longer echo with footsteps. It drifts into bedrooms that feel both familiar and foreign. You lie in bed at night and remember exactly how it sounded when they ran through the house. You remember the weight of their presence, how it filled every corner. And in the absence of that noise, memory becomes louder. You think about who you were when they lived here. The version of yourself defined by carpools and school events and bedtime routines. That identity was full, demanding, exhausting, and yet it gave structure to your days. It told you who you were. Now there is space. Space in your schedule. Space in your home. Space in your sense of self. That space can feel freeing. You can travel without arranging childcare. You can eat dinner whenever you choose. You can sit in silence and read without interruption. There is a lightness in that freedom. A sense of having completed something important. But there is also a hollow echo. The mind revisits small scenes. A backpack dropped by the door, a voice calling from another room, the soft knock on your bedroom door in the middle of the night. You remember helping with homework at the kitchen table. You remember waiting up past midnight until you heard the front door open safely. You remember the relief of knowing everyone was home. Now everyone is home somewhere else. You are proud of them. That pride is steady and real. You raised them to build lives beyond these walls. You wanted them to be independent, to grow into people who could stand on their own. And they have done exactly that. The success of your children is proof that you did something right. Still, the mind lingers. It replays conversations. It imagines what their daily lives look like now. It wonders whether they remember this house the way you do. It wonders whether they understand how deeply they are still held in your thoughts. The body may rest in an emptier home, but the mind is active with presence. The rooms may be quiet, but they are not empty. They are layered with years of laughter and worry and love. And in the dark, when everything else is still, those layers rise gently to the surface. This is what transition feels like. Not dramatic. Not catastrophic. Just bittersweet. A soft ache mixed with gratitude. A recognition that something beautiful has ended and something else, quieter, slower, has begun. The house has changed. You have changed. But the love remains steady and alive, moving through empty rooms long after the footsteps have faded. There are some things the body simply cannot repair. A sore muscle can recover. A broken bone can mend. Even illness sometimes can be treated and managed. But regret does not live in muscle or bone. It lives in memory. And memory has no surgery, no physical therapy, no medication to undo what has already happened. At night, especially, regret rises without accusation but with clarity. It is not loud in the way it once was. It does not shout or condemn. It simply presents itself, quietly, like an old photograph pulled from a drawer. You see moments you wish had gone differently. Words you held back. Words you spoke too quickly. Opportunities you hesitated to take. You think about the conversations that never happened. The I love you that felt unnecessary at the time. The apology you meant to make but postponed. The gratitude you assumed was understood without being spoken. It seemed easier in the moment to wait. There would be time, you believed. There is always more time, until there isn't. There are missed chances too. The trip you decided against because it felt impractical. The job you didn't pursue because it felt risky. The creative dream you tucked away because life demanded something more stable. None of these decisions were made carelessly. They were made by the person you were then, responsible, cautious, trying to do the right thing. That matters. Regret often forgets context. It looks back with the knowledge you have now and judges the version of you who didn't know what you know today. But that younger version of you was doing their best. Making choices with limited information. Acting from fear sometimes, yes, but also from love. From responsibility. From a desire to protect. The body cannot go back and redo those moments. It cannot walk into a room from 20 years ago and speak the words differently. It cannot reach across time and choose another path. And slowly, gently, you begin to accept that it doesn't have to. Regret without punishment feels different. It feels softer. It acknowledges the mistake without turning it into a verdict about your worth. Yes, you could have been kinder in that argument. Yes, you could have taken that risk. Yes, you could have said more while there was still time. All of that may be true. But it does not mean you failed at being human. It means you were human. You were tired sometimes. You were overwhelmed. You were uncertain. You were proud. You were afraid. You were learning. There is a quiet humility in recognizing that you did not always get it right. But there is also dignity in recognizing that you tried. That you showed up more often than you didn't. That you loved imperfectly but genuinely. Regret becomes gentler when you stop asking it to disappear and instead allow it to sit beside you. It is not an enemy. It is a reminder of care. You do not regret what meant nothing. You regret what mattered. And so you begin to hold regret differently. Not as a weight pressing on your chest, but as a teacher whose lesson has already been absorbed. You cannot fix what the body cannot reach. You cannot rewrite the past. But you can carry the awareness forward. Acceptance does not mean approval of every choice. It simply means understanding that those choices were made by a person doing the best they could in that moment. And that person deserves compassion, not blame. The body rests now. The past cannot be altered. The only thing left to do is forgive gently, breathe slowly, and allow yourself the grace of being imperfect in a life that was never meant to be flawless. Forgiveness does not always arrive in dramatic conversations or tearful reconciliations. Sometimes it happens here, in the dark, in the quiet space between one breath and the next. It happens without witnesses, without announcements, without anyone else even knowing it occurred. Lying still, you begin to feel the weight of what you have carried for years. Not just regret, but resentment. Old injuries. Words that cut deeper than they should have. Moments when someone failed you, disappointed you, or walked away when you needed them most. You replayed those scenes countless times once. You rehearsed what you would say if given another chance. You imagined the apology you deserved. But tonight something shifts. The anger no longer feels powerful. Feels heavy. Feels tiring. You are too old, too wise, too aware of how short time truly is to keep holding on to something that has already passed. Forgiving them does not mean what they did was acceptable. It does not rewrite the story. It simply loosens your grip on it. You begin to understand that most people were doing the best they could with the awareness they had. Just like you were. Just like you still are. They acted from their own fears, their own wounds, their own limitations. It doesn't excuse the pain, but it explains the humanity behind it. And that makes it easier to soften. Forgiveness, in this quiet hour, feels less like granting permission and more like setting yourself down gently. You are not freeing them as much as you are freeing yourself. You are choosing not to carry the same injury into tomorrow. You are choosing rest over righteousness. Then the harder part comes. Forgiving yourself. There are mistakes you made that no one else remembers. But you do. You remember the times you were impatient. The times you chose pride over connection. The times you failed to show up in the way you wish you had. You have held those moments against yourself for years, replaying them like evidence in a trial that never ends. But what if you are allowed to be human? What if imperfection was always part of the design? You did not wake up each day intending to cause harm. You were navigating life as best you could. Learning in real time. Growing slowly. Sometimes clumsily. Sometimes beautifully. And the person you are now is wiser because of the person you were then. Forgiveness in stillness is not loud. It does not come with fireworks or sudden relief. It comes like a quiet exhale. A subtle loosening in the chest. A recognition that you no longer need to punish yourself for being imperfect. You can acknowledge the mistake and still offer yourself compassion. You can remember the pain and still allow healing. You can say quietly, "I did the best I could," and mean it. Letting go does not erase memory. It simply removes the sting. The story remains, but the sharp edges begin to dull. You are not rewriting the past. You are releasing its grip. And there is something profoundly peaceful about that. In the stillness, forgiveness feels natural. It feels like something that was waiting for you to slow down long enough to accept it. You are not absolving yourself of responsibility. You are honoring growth. You are recognizing that a life lived fully will always include mistakes, and that those mistakes do not define the entirety of who you are. The night holds this decision gently. No one applauds it. No one sees it. But it matters. You forgive them. You forgive yourself. Not perfectly. Not all at once. But enough for tonight. And that is enough. Grief waits for stillness. During the day it stays in the background. There are errands to run, conversations to have, small routines that keep you moving. You can almost forget, for a few hours at a time, the shape of what is missing. But at night, when the body lies down and the world grows quiet, loss steps forward. It does not knock. It simply arrives. You feel it most clearly in the space beside you. The empty side of the bed. The pillow that no longer dips with the weight of another head. The absence of breathing that once blended with yours in the dark. You reach for them sometimes without thinking, your hand moving across cool sheets before your mind remembers what your heart already knows. They are not there. A spouse is not just a person. They are rhythm, habit, witness. They are the one who knew the version of you that no one else saw. The one who shared the ordinary days that never make it into stories. The silent glances across rooms. The small smiles. The quiet comfort of simply being known. When that is gone, the silence changes. It is not just quiet. It is hollow. At rest, you feel the full shape of that absence. There is no distraction strong enough to fill it. No noise loud enough to cover it. The stillness makes it honest. Makes it real. And yet, beneath the ache there is something else. There is gratitude woven into the sorrow. You grieve deeply because you love deeply. The pain is proof that what you shared mattered. That it was real. That it shaped you. Friends too return at night. The ones you laughed with decades ago. The ones who understood you without explanation. The ones who are gone now, their numbers no longer in your phone, their voices no longer reaching your ears. You remember how easily you once said, "We'll meet again soon," never imagining that soon could run out. Funerals blur together over the years. Faces framed in photographs. Words spoken in hushed tones. Promises to stay in touch that slowly dissolve as life continues. And now, lying still, you realize how few remain from those earlier chapters. The circle grows smaller. Loss is not dramatic in this hour. It is steady. It is weighty. It sits beside you like an old companion. You do not fight it anymore. You have learned that grief cannot be argued with. It cannot be reasoned away. You let it sit. You let yourself remember the last conversations. The unfinished sentences. The things you wish you had asked. You wonder if they knew how much they mattered. You hope they did. You hope love was louder than anything left unsaid. Grief feels strongest when you are still because there is nowhere for it to hide. In motion you can outrun it. In noise you can soften it. But in rest it rises clearly. And yet you are still here. That is the quiet strength beneath it all. You are still breathing. Still remembering. Still carrying the love that has nowhere else to go. Grief does not disappear, but it changes form. It becomes less of a wound and more of a companion. Less sharp, more integrated. You carry them with you now in different ways. In the phrases you repeat because they used to say them. In the habits you picked up unconsciously. In the way you see the world through the lens of having loved and lost. Absence is loud in the dark. But so is memory. And memory, even when it hurts, is also a gift. Because it means they were here. It means you shared something real. It means your life was intertwined with others in ways that left marks too deep to fade. You lie still and let the grief exist without pushing it away. You breathe through it. You allow the tears if they come. You allow the ache. This is not weakness. This is love continuing in another form. The body rests. The heart remembers. And in that remembering, even loss carries a quiet kind of strength. There is a particular honesty that comes with the slowing of the body. It is not dramatic. It does not arrive all at once. It reveals itself gradually in small adjustments you make without announcing them. You stand up more carefully than you used to. You take the stairs with a hand on the railing. You pause halfway through a task, not because you forgot what you were doing, but because your body asks for a moment. Time does not shout. It speaks quietly through the knees, through the lower back, through the way your energy dips earlier in the evening than it once did. You have routines now that would have seemed foreign in your youth. Pill containers organized by day of the week. Appointments written neatly on calendars. Blood tests. Blood pressure readings. Numbers that mean more than they used to. You know your cholesterol level. You know your resting heart rate. You know which symptoms to watch and which to ignore. Doctor visits are no longer rare interruptions. They are woven into the rhythm of your life. You sit in waiting rooms with others who move a little slower too. You exchange polite smiles. You listen as names are called. You answer questions about sleep, appetite, aches, medications. You describe pain with surprising precision. On a scale of 1 to 10. You never imagined you would speak so fluently about your own body. But now you do. Because it matters. Because it is changing. Because you understand that maintenance is not weakness, it is stewardship. The body that once moved without your attention now requires partnership. There are moments when fear flickers. A test result that takes too long to return. A new symptom that feels unfamiliar. A story about someone your age who suddenly wasn't here anymore. Mortality is no longer an abstract concept discussed in philosophy books. It is a quiet presence that walks beside you. But it is not as terrifying as you once thought it would be. There is something grounding about knowing time is finite. It sharpens certain priorities. It softens others. Arguments lose their urgency. Petty resentments feel less worth carrying. You begin to measure days differently, not by productivity but by presence. You are aware now that you have fewer years ahead than behind. That realization does not crush you. Steadies you. It brings clarity. You no longer postpone joy the way you once did. You no longer assume there will always be more time. Time speaks more clearly when the body slows. It says, notice this. It says, call them. It says, sit here a little longer. You find yourself less interested in fighting the inevitable and more interested in cooperating with it. You eat with a little more intention. You move with a little more care. You rest when you need to. You allow yourself gentleness. Acceptance is not surrender. It is maturity. You are not giving up on life. You are honoring it. You are acknowledging that this body, faithful and imperfect, has carried you through decades of experience. It deserves respect, not resentment. There is a quiet dignity in aging. In showing up for appointments. In taking medication without complaint. In walking slowly but steadily. In adapting instead of denying. You do not pretend you will live forever. You do not obsess over the end either. You live inside the space between. Mortality awareness does not have to be dramatic. It can be practical. It can be calm. It can simply be the understanding that time is moving, and you are moving with it. And when you lie awake at night, feeling the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat, you do not panic at its eventual stopping. You feel gratitude that it is still beating now. The body slows. Time speaks. And you listen, not with fear but with respect. You have lived through more change than you ever expected to witness. When you were young, the world felt stable, fixed in its ways, predictable in its rhythms. Phones were attached to walls. Letters took days to arrive. News came at certain hours, not every minute. Photographs were printed, held, placed into albums. If you wanted to see someone, you visited them. If you wanted to speak, you called and hoped they were home. Now the world moves at a pace that would have once felt impossible. Messages travel instantly. Faces appear on screens from across oceans. Information floods in without pause. You have watched technology shrink distances and expand distractions at the same time. You adapted as best you could. You learned enough to stay connected. You video call your grandchildren. You send messages instead of letters. You carry a device in your pocket that holds more power than entire buildings once did. But even as you learned, you felt the shift. The quiet disappearance of the world you once knew. The stores that closed. The neighborhoods that changed. The customs that softened or vanished. You have lived through eras, through wars reported in black and white, through movements that reshaped society, through leaders who inspired and leaders who disappointed. You remember where you were when certain headlines broke. You remember the collective fear, the collective hope. Being alive this long means you are not just aging, you are carrying history. You remember what came before. You hold the before in a world that now only knows the after. And sometimes that feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like being the last keeper of a story no one else quite understands. But it is also a gift. You have perspective. You have seen cycles repeat. You have watched panic rise and settle. You have watched humanity stumble and rebuild. Living through eras has taught you that change is constant, that certainty is temporary, and that resilience runs deeper than fear. And from all of it, decades of change, growth, loss, reinvention, the mind has distilled its lessons. They repeat themselves gently at night. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just clearly. What mattered was never what you thought it would be. It wasn't the titles. Not the possessions. Not the achievements you once chased so fiercely. Those things fade quickly in memory. What remains are faces. Conversations. Small gestures of kindness. Time, you realize now, was always the real currency. Not money. Not status. Time spent. Time given. Time shared. The afternoons you lingered instead of rushing. The evenings you listened fully. The mornings you showed up even when you were tired. Those are the investments that held value. The mind repeats this lesson because it wants you to feel it fully. It wants you to understand that you did not waste your life simply because it was ordinary. Ordinary days were the point. Love expressed quietly was the point. Staying was the point. There are things that did not matter nearly as much as you feared they did. Embarrassments, arguments, deadlines, opinions of strangers. They dissolve under the weight of time. What stays is connection. What stays is presence. And slowly another lesson settles in. Control was never as firm as you imagined. You once believed that if you planned carefully enough, worked hard enough, loved fiercely enough, you could steer outcomes. You could prevent pain. You could guarantee safety. But life unfolded in ways you did not script. Children chose their own paths. Illness arrived uninvited. People left. The world shifted without consulting you. And each time you tried to adjust the wheel. Now, lying here at night, you see more clearly. Control was always partial. Sometimes imagined. You influenced, yes. You participated. But you never commanded the entire course. And strangely, that realization no longer frightens you. Frees you. If control was an illusion, then you can release the burden of maintaining it. You can stop replaying every decision as if it might alter the past. You can stop bracing against every possibility. You can let the river move without exhausting yourself trying to redirect it. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is recognizing that you have done what you could, and the rest belongs to forces larger than you. The night becomes the container for this understanding. In daylight you perform. You respond. You manage. But at night the darkness asks nothing of you. It does not evaluate. It does not demand productivity. It does not compare you to anyone else. Darkness is not threatening. It is protective. It is a space without judgment. A space where memory can surface without interruption. Where emotion can rise without explanation. The night holds you the way water holds a body floating on its back. Effortless. Supported. Here you can remember without being overwhelmed. Here grief softens. Regret quiets. Love expands without needing to be returned. The night allows all of it. Makes room. And slowly, gently, your thoughts begin to lose their sharp edges. What once felt urgent now feels distant. The mental replay slows. Images blur at the corners. Your breathing deepens without you instructing it to. Your chest rises and falls more slowly. The rhythm becomes steady, almost hypnotic. Memories that were vivid moments ago now drift like leaves on water. You can see them, but they no longer pull you under. They move past. Your body, which has been patiently waiting, begins to take over. Muscles loosen further. Your jaw unclenches. Your hands relax against the sheets. You are no longer trying to sleep. You are simply resting. This is the shift. The moment when effort dissolves. When you stop measuring minutes. When you stop wondering how long it will take. Sleep cannot be forced. You learned that long ago. It comes when invited, not commanded. So you stop demanding it. You trust the body that has carried you through decades. It knows how to do this. It has done it thousands of times. You allow the breath to guide you. There is no problem to solve now. Nothing to fix. Nothing left unfinished that can be addressed in this hour. You have witnessed a changing world. You have learned what mattered. You have released the illusion of control. You have let the night hold your memories without resistance. The body has done enough for one day. The mind has remembered enough for one night. There is dignity in this resting. There is grace in this surrender. You do not need to be extraordinary. You do not need to be more than you are. You have lived. You have loved. You have endured. That is enough. Your breath is slower now. The darkness feels softer. The weight of the mattress feels welcoming instead of heavy. Nothing more is required. The body rests. The mind remembers. And eventually even memory sleeps. You've carried this life well. Rest now.